I would definitely think I think the experience for sure has a part in that. What I would also say though is I think we are very good at adapting quickly.
Communication is key. If you're not communicating to your boss and you're kind of just like waiting for some time or just like waiting for some sort of an opportunity to exit or leveraging that, I get that. As an employee, I get that a lot of people do that, right?
Yeah.
But if in the process you are hurting and damaging the business that has essentially paid you, that has taken care of you, had let you change your life, that is beyond unethical.
Yeah, venture hustles, life is really what you make it. Building up your brand is whatever you create it. Really ain't no limit. You just gotta love it. Working day and night, it's all about the venture hustle. Hey, venture hustles. Time to take it to the next level. Let's go.
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Welcome back to the Venture Hustles podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Saj. I'm one of the co-hosts of the show, and we've got Jack.
That's me.
How's your week been?
Week has been good. You know what? A lot of times I feel like I come in on Monday, I blink, and now it's Friday or it's Saturday, and I'm getting ready for the next week. That's how I feel most times. I mean, the fact that we're starting Q4 is unreal.
Yeah, it has been an insanely fast-paced year.
Yeah, it's a good way of putting it.
Yeah, I mean, we started off the year with a really good start, and then very, very turbulent for pretty much most of the year, for 6 months after.
Yeah.
And then now we're kind of like at the end of the year, at the start of Q4, and we're in a very interesting place. A lot of cool things happening, a lot of good things. A lot of us reeling and recovering, and a lot of crazy things in the horizon. So it's safe to say that I feel, I don't know about you, but I feel like, man, it has been a wild roller coaster this year.
Without a doubt. Ups, downs, and everything in between.
And you know, like for me, I compare any sort of crazy year, whether that's like a really good profitable year or a really good like lessons learned year, or just, I don't know, anything. I compare that to, I try to look back and go back to when I first started, and you know, I'm talking about me being in the space for almost like doing this for over a decade now, like 10, 11 years, and I have to say this one's for the books. You know, this year, 100% is a massive personal growth year for me.
Yep.
And I say this because, you know, some of the things that we're going to talk about today, and today's topic, is basically, you know, cleaning up, detoxing problems that you go through, that your company goes through, that's hurting or plaguing your company.
Yeah.
And how to overcome that.
I mean, not only overcoming, but also recognizing, diagnosing, and then finding a solution. Might not be the first one that you think of. So second, third solution, whatever it is, and then potentially, hopefully, overcoming. Which, you know, I think we've done that.
100%. I mean, it's not as easy as it sounds.
Only if it was.
Yeah. But that's the thing, you know. For us, a lot of the things that we went through, a lot of it kind of happened because of, I would probably say, a lack of experience. You know, that's probably the best way that I can justify this.
Okay.
So it doesn't sound lazy. The reality is, I think a lot of things that we fuck up on essentially are because of lack of experience, lack of knowledge, lack of having the wherewithal to understand and adapt, you know?
You know, I would definitely think the experience for sure has a part in that. What I would also say, though, is I think we are very good at adapting quickly.
I second that. Yeah, we are. We're good at identifying what's wrong and quickly just moving, you know, not wasting any time.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah, I think that's what we did a lot. So to kind of give, I guess, some context of what we're intending to talk about today, and one of the topics, if you've been part of this journey at Venture Hustle so far, a lot of what our goals are when we're having these solo episodes of just me and Jack without any guests, our intent is to kind of go through our experiences, things that we learned, things that we've gone through personally, and also things that we see that we would like to experience and venture into.
Yes.
And we basically provide our insight. And
insight, experience, so that whether it's good or bad, if you're listening, hopefully you're able to.
It's always been good. Like everything that we're talking about is mostly positive. But I think it's important to touch on negatives. It's important to touch on lessons learned and things that can improve. Like if somebody's out there listening, or can take any value from similar things that they're potentially going through or anticipating that they, predicting.
One day you'll have to experience, something that you didn't plan for. It was going to be chaotic, and if you've listened to this episode, hopefully you get some value, some tips, and we'll hopefully can help you out at the end of the day. That's our goal. Always has been. Always will be. So
100%.
Should we dive in?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's dive in.
The main subject here, how to detox the issues that are plaguing and hurting your company, along with how to, really diagnose them to be able to even solve them.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so where should we start? What do you think?
So I want to make this as real as possible.
Okay. We can do that
because we want to be transparent. We want to make sure that we. This isn't fugazi. This isn't This isn't theoretical.
I kind of wish it was.
Yeah, I know. But I also, at the same time, I also want to be as sensitive as possible as we talk about this.
Oh yeah.
But I guess what are some issues that you could deal with, right? I guess what are we talking about? What we're talking about is at Finally Free Productions at FFP, so Jack has been in the company over 2 years now, and I started this company a couple years ago, and we have we started experiencing a lot of rapid growth since 2017, and year over year we've been kind of growing.
Doing pretty well.
We've been doing pretty well. We've never had a year where we've had a down year. It's always been positive.
Yes.
So for example, I think from 2018 to 2019, or I forget what it was, we had a 280% growth year over year. It just kind of, the numbers were kind of similar back to back. So as you can imagine, if you're kind of listening to this and you're watching this, I mean, that's pretty good. So if you imagine, I guess for theoretical purposes, let's say you've done $500,000 in 1 year, 200% would be 1.5 million, so
not too shabby.
Correct. I mean, other than that, it's actually I messed that up. 200% would be about $1 million, because 100% would be exactly netting that back, right? So, but the reality is, when you're in the mix of that, you're kind of so engulfed in what's happening, or at least I can speak from my experience, and we can speak from our experience. We went from a very last year, for example.
Yeah, last year was a really good year.
Phenomenal year. Yeah. Great year. We were on track to break record numbers.
We were cruising.
We were cruising. Yep. A lot of good things were happening. To us, we were kind of sitting top of the hill.
In a lot of ways, for sure.
Right. There were no strong indicators last year that something was wrong, something was off, or things were kind of in a turbulent state, let's say, right? Then we started seeing and identifying things go wrong this year.
Yeah, beginning Q1 of this year.
Correct. Now, I say this because it's very important. I don't, again, hopefully people can kind of relate, but we were in the mix of, okay, we just launched this new service, and that was super successful. We just tried this with a new type of clientele, and that was super successful. I mean, every single experiment we were doing, change,
And we were growing the team.
We were growing the team. We were hiring more people.
Aggressively.
All of that was working.
Mm-hmm.
All of that was really good. And we were basically on track to kind of have record numbers this year as well.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Q1 of this year, we were sitting great. And then problems started happening.
Yes.
We started realizing that there have been more and more things that started coming out of the woodworks, and things that were not shown a light. So what I did personally that caused this to happen, well, my crimes in this case were,
okay.
As you know this, I like leading a team with zero micromanagement.
Yeah.
Like I am very happy, or I used to be very happy and proud of the way I did this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not to say that I don't anymore, but I'm definitely more careful now.
A little bit different, yep.
Yeah. But I like that because I like to hire people and bring people on my team based off of the fact that they can do things that I can't do, or they have experience on things that I can't, like more for a technical specific hire, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm putting you in that position, I would like to think that you are a responsible individual that's going to get the job done,
mm-hmm.
and that's going to care, and that's going to want to be there, and not just for a paycheck. So when I'm just making those hires and those calls, that was my prerogative.
Yeah.
So I don't micromanage. I've never done that before in the past, until like this year, and things I just let a lot of things go. I imagined, I trusted a lot of different people.
Mm-hmm.
I trusted a lot of different assets that I thought were assets in the company. Individuals and resources were assets to the company. And they weren't.
Yeah.
They were actually a massive, massive hindrance to our growth and progress. And I know we haven't we've been dealing with this for 6, 7, 8 months, basically, and we've never talked about this. But on the back end, me and Jack were heavily involved in cleaning up the mess caused by set individuals.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and one of the things also is that a lot of times you don't, or you can't really even, you'll diagnose the problem, but depending on what that particular problem is,
mm-hmm.
you may think that you diagnose it and you understand it, but it can keep growing and growing.
I know.
And growing.
Yep.
And for me, one of the things that I had learned, I think, and we both learned, was you can have the solution, but just because you implement it doesn't mean it's going to solve it right away.
Yeah.
You can know the solution, even try it and do it, but that doesn't mean the problem's going to get solved in a day, 2 days, 3 days. It's continuous.
You can have a successful product, a successful brand,
mm-hmm.
and scale it.
Mm-hmm.
But there are problems that you might not even anticipate might be problems,
mm-hmm.
and they're just kind of slowly brewing underneath the skin.
Mm-hmm.
And one day it's just going to explode because you're not, getting the right treatments, or you're not taking preventative measures.
Yeah.
So I agree with you there. Yeah, 100%.
I mean, because for me, I've always thought, okay, if I see the problem, I understand it, I recognize it. All right, let me sit on it. Let me understand the problem. How did this happen? Let me think of a solution, implement the solution. Okay, great. Problem solved.
Yeah.
But then again, it's no. The solution is going to take time to solve the problem. It's just, I don't know. That was a big thing for me, It wasn't immediate, and nothing about it was.
100%. I think that's one of the things that I liked about working with you, is that you weren't afraid to take a pause and kind of help diagnose this problem.
Yeah.
And clean out the rut and the plague,
mm-hmm.
the things that were plaguing the company.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of things. There's a couple of core things, right? Mostly individual resource people related, people that were causing a lot of harm to the company. And we're in the process of just taking these people out. We're not just talking about one individual. We're talking about a couple.
Yeah.
And the reality is, I guess, to kind of give some context on where we, what happened in a way. We're in the professional services industry,
mm-hmm.
where we build custom software and tech for startups, entrepreneurs. And a lot of our operations are based off of customer service, are
mm-hmm.
based off of our rapport that we build with the clients. Now, when you're at a high level, your job is to ensure that you're smoothly communicating with the clients, making sure that you know everything's being facilitated. The people that are working under you know their job and they're following the instructions properly, and you're managing everything.
The management, yeah.
The management. Now, a certain individual in the company that was at a high level position, ignored a lot of primary protocols and just responsibilities they had. Now, could I have just been like, okay, let's just fire this person and replace that problem? You don't understand. We're in a very, very complex industry where firing somebody and then rehiring is a complicated process because you have to go through very specific, specialized levels of training to achieve that.
Well, not even just training, but then also understanding the people you're working with, understanding particular projects and facets of the actual position.
Well, I was going to say that's part 2 of the list of things that kind of like, so it wasn't even that. I think the bigger issue was that this individual was so much in this power position in the company that I allowed to happen, that a lot of the things kind of fell through the cracks. And again, kind of going back to this, I didn't like to micromanage. I never enjoyed that. So I trusted that a lot of things were going. But long story short, without kind of diving into this because we moved way past that, that chapter of our lives, the damages caused by said individual was irreversible, right? Like he, basically unresponsive to clients, not caring about, being doing basic due diligence.
At the end of the day, without going too far down the rabbit hole, it's really just not doing your job responsibilities. Yeah, and it just not ultimately failing at them, but just not doing them, ignoring. That's the thing, things right? like that.
Every company, there's people. The reason why I say this specifically is because I don't know if this is a problem, is a me problem, or like FFP problem, or other companies. And the reason why I specify this is because this is like an individual problem that's not doing their job correctly, right? That's not voicing their problems, internal issues, happiness issues, whatever it is, just not voicing it and just being shady about it, right? And being dishonest about that process. The thing is, communication is key. If you're not communicating to your boss and you're kind of just like waiting for some time or just like waiting for some sort of an opportunity to exit or leveraging that, I get that. As an employee, I get that a lot of people do that, right?
Yeah.
But if in the process you are hurting and damaging the business that has essentially paid you, that has taken care of you, had let you change your life, that is beyond unethical. Because here's one thing that me and you always talk about. Always make sure that you leave the door open somehow.
Never burn a bridge.
Never burn a bridge.
Yeah, it goes back to networking. Yeah, we've spoken a lot about that.
Yeah, we have. But the reason why I say this is because like this could be categorized as, this particular problem we're talking about could be categorized as an employee or an individual just not doing their job. Easy solution, fire them, replace them, right? For us, like what I was saying is this is a very complicated position. And I think the bigger issue that was my problem was that I think I was late to the party significantly. I wasn't able to identify that this was happening. This was basically essentially happening under my nose, and I didn't even know that.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. And, like you mentioned, you were late. I think you categorized it well. You were late to the party essentially. And, when you're late to the party, there's some things that you miss and that you'll have to really start to understand and catch up to, let's say.
Right.
Or figure it out.
Well, the aftermath we'll talk about
the after party
in a little bit. We'll talk about the after party.
Okay, we can talk about the after party.
I guess like how do you identify these things? That's one of the things that we were talking about. I don't know if there's going to be ever a perfect place for you to, but I just think that you should have more checks and balances.
Yeah, I think for me, one of the biggest things that I took away, and I think both of us took away, was the developing systems for checks and balances. And so it's very important, I think, that people shouldn't hold up the system. The system should be holding up the people, right?
Love that.
So when you build out these workflows, when you build out the workflows for, you know, your employees or for people going to be working at the company, you want to keep that in mind, you know, so that if it's not really if, but more so when someone either leaves, they get fired, whatever it may be, the system's still intact and that transition can be much, much smoother.
So this is something that I've always said. Every single person is replaceable. Like even me, in a way. Like if you've got a system and a brand that works for you and everything is working smooth, and you've got something that works, that is scalable, then every single thing underneath it is replaceable. This is one of those things that, let's say, Mr. Wonderful Kevin O'Leary says in Shark Tank. What happens to your business when you get run over by a bus tomorrow? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
If the answer is, shit, I don't know.
It falls apart.
It falls apart.
Yeah.
Then shit, I ain't investing in your business.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's something that I've been saying this forever. And I've had some people that have worked under me took it the wrong way. And they were upset, like, working with me.
Yeah.
Because I said that, they take it personally.
Yeah, I could understand that.
But the reality is, I'm not saying this is you. I'm saying this for me as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? In the context of when I say this?
For sure.
So everybody's like irreplaceable. Replaceable. But your job, on the other hand, should always be to make it very difficult for someone to replace you.
That's exactly what I was going to say, especially when you're new.
Yep.
Again, like you'd mentioned, you are replaceable, but the goal is, and this has always been my goal, to be in a place and to provide so much value where it's like, even if this person leaves or if I leave,
it's gonna be really
you're going to feel it. You're feeling it.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And so that, again, that's something you can take to the next workplace and, you know, really just looking for the person that understands that, values you, you provide value, and, you know, you can grow on.
Well, the thing is, like, to that point, what you just said, right? You're going to feel it. You're going to feel the whole point of you making your presence known so much, and making your value so important is so that
you never get there, I guess.
You never get there.
Yeah.
So every time someone's thinking about doing that, they're like, oh shit, this is going to be very difficult to replace someone like Jack or Saj. What am I going to do? Now, here's the thing. Jack and Saj can just quit. Then you're on your own.
Well,
then you're feeling it either way.
Yeah.
But in the process, you want to make sure that and then you want to be able to kind of like build your brand off of that. You want to build your future, your career off of that. But the reality is, the reason why I even said this is it's not just a lot of times these solutions are not just replacing people. Even if we identified, so when we did identify these faulty people and these faulty,
would it be too harsh to call it like cancers,
I guess, or I would say just toxic, you know, just
plague. So you stick with the plague kind of play here, or?
I would say toxic environments, you know, just within different departments, let's say, right? When we did identify what these toxic people were doing, that was not good for the company. That was just horrible, and it was very selfish.
Really, it wasn't good for anyone.
It wasn't good,
including that this individual.
I mean, the outcome wasn't good, but the reality is, as you kind of it just catches up. So a lot of things happened, you know, under basically my nose. I wasn't aware of it. Severely breaking company protocol, just dishonest business and things like that. And one of the things that I basically allowed to happen is because I didn't have that many checks and balances. I trusted that things were fine. So that's something I learned severely. There are a lot more checks and balances personally. But I would say that when we did identify, we put in layers of like, okay, systems.
Mm-hmm.
This is what needs to be done. We spent about 6-7 months at this point cleaning up and setting up so many different systems and layers, like to the point where we had to put a pause on a lot of our efforts, a lot of our plans of growth and scalability, just because we realized how many things that we needed to put an emphasis on to clean up and to figure out and sort out first before we resume the scale button. Right? Wouldn't you say?
Well, without a doubt. I mean, you know, I can remember having many conversations, you know, with you while we're, in the muck of this.
Yeah.
And it's like, listen, we have to do whatever we have to do at this point. And if that means, not to say that we ever had mentioned we're doing a hard pause, but more so being in a place where the main priority is solving and fixing what has been created and what's wrong, so that when we go and when we're in a place that we feel comfortable and can really lift off, we're lifting off with not even a single doubt in our mind that when we get to a place that we're shattering numbers, it's very busy, we know that these things that we're doing now, the foundations are going to be in a good place still.
This happened, a lot of this happened early on in Q1 of this year, right when we were doing so well. Jack, you made a very important, kind of like a game-changing suggestion, and you put in a lot of faith, and a lot of it, me and you were already experimenting in this space 6, 7, 8 months prior. So eventually we were probably done it, but it wasn't going to happen until, let's say that nudge from you, or like, all right, let's do this. And then when we did this, and we're talking about blockchain services, right? We were in a world where things were really good, like everything else, because like now there's a new thing that we're servicing. So this all happened in the middle of that. So we didn't really do a hard pause, I agree. But the reality was we had to just take the time to clean up. We had to take the time to detox, to fire people, to hire people. We hired a lot of people since then as well.
Oh, yeah.
So we brought in maybe 6, 7 new people.
We
just tried a new system. We tried remote hires. We did a lot of different things in that process that I think has improved the company significantly.
I would agree with that. And not only improving the company, but then also I think it just really comes down to building the foundation. There was cracks in the foundation, and we had to rebuild a little bit, restructure a little bit. And so when we start hiring, like we did, it's pretty smooth. No real big hiccups. And the thing is, you can feel comfortable. I feel comfortable. Where if there is a place, if there is people that don't have the right intentions or are, let's say, lacking and not doing their basic responsibilities, the systems that are in place are going to be able to identify that pretty quickly, so that if that is happening, the damages aren't as severe as they were,
Correct. Yeah, I think that's well put. I just think that I guess one of the things that I want to talk about would be, we try to address how can you identify these things, right? But I think we should also talk about what have we done since then to improve, like bullet points, in a way.
Okay.
I would say that one of the things that I think were good was the one-on-one meetings, that we had set up with, let's say, you and then the people that are working under you, you as a supervisor or me, it's with certain individuals and the different departments, design department, CAT, and just anybody else. I think that's pretty good because you kind of keep a pulse on the system and the people that you're working with every day.
A lot of it comes down to communication, and it's not just, hi, how are you? How was your weekend? But taking the time to sit down with a person and really understand how they feel, not only in their personal life, because your personal life at the end of the day will affect your work life, but then also, listen, how is your work life? Like, what, I know you're doing X, Y, and Z. I know this is what you're supposed to be doing. Do you like it?
Do you like it? Is there anything you want to do differently? Is there anything you want to try? Is there anything you don't like?
Is there anything that is stressing you out? Is there anything that's bothering you? Do you think we can improve something? In all the meetings that I have, that's one of the first questions I start where it's like, listen, John, anything stressing you out lately? Talk to me. What's stressing you out? Is it a particular client, a particular project, a particular person in the company, or maybe some responsibilities or tasks that you have to do that you don't like that makes you feel comfortable? 100%. Let me know.
Yeah.
Open line of communication, I think, is huge. And if, let's say, that there was more emphasis on that in the beginning of the year, it's very possible that maybe the explosion, whatever you want to call it, might not have happened. Who knows? Can't really say. But
see, that's the thing. You're not a mind reader as a boss or as a leader.
Yes.
So a lot of times, this is my personal mistake, is I left an open door policy to everybody. When you came in day one, I always said, hey, if there's anything you want to talk about, you can talk to me. Right?
Well, the difference, I think, is some people will take advantage of that, like I did. Some people won't. You know, so we have to fill the gap, I guess.
When I say I'm not a mind reader, your boss is not. This is what I mean.
Yeah,
they're going to be your boss, your leader, whoever's your supervisor, probably has 10x the amount of responsibility. I guess depends on the industry,
sure,
or just in terms of big picture stuff, where sitting down and anticipating or trying to think about, what does John think, or is John overstressed with work? Like, that's not his job, right? His job is not to kind of be a telepathic therapist. His job is to run and grow a company. So the reality is, if you're not taking advantage of, let's say, an open door communications policy, then that's on you. But even despite that, we realized that was a problem, and we implemented the one-on-one systems. We implemented just better line of communication overall, and just made it more prominent. Let's talk, let's figure this out. Then one of the biggest things was, we're in a very high stress environment. So a lot of, people were kind of like dealing with multi-stress situations with different types of projects, different types of complex situations. We emphasized on breaking different responsibilities down. And one of the things I know you're dealing with, but we've tried to implement so many different solutions to improve upon that, get more people, get more hands involved, hire more people to help solve certain things. So the thing is, we're not a startup, but we were in an environment where we were kind of doing a lot of things that a startup would, where we'd wear a lot of hats, but the clientele and the capacity and the bandwidth of what we were doing was just spread so thin because we were dealing with so many projects, so many clients. We're doing great, so that's the reason why I say that.
I think another thing to consider is sometimes it's really worth taking a step back. When you're in and when you're so close to something, it can be very hard to start to realize what might be happening 2 feet to the right, to the left, or even behind you. So you have to take a step back every once in a while and kind of just realize and understand, try to analyze what's happening. And, because when we did this, the answers were kind of right there almost. It's like, these are, okay, change this, maybe do this here. We did it, and look where we are.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't overnight. It was implementing certain things every other week, and then testing and then touching it and seeing if that was too hot, too cold. We also created, one of the other things that we did to improve and to kind of like fix this, we created a leadership team. We did this early on while this was happening because we were like, all right, we need a brain team that's going to help solve a lot of these things in key departments. And that's been steady and strong. A lot of what we did in the beginning was more constructive. Now it's more like, hey, what's the update? What's happening? But the reality is, I personally feel blessed that I have really super intellectual individuals on my team, super talented people like Jack and just Kat, and let's say, just people on the team that give a shit, And I think that's very, very important.
I mean, teamwork makes the dream work.
Hell yeah. I just think that a lot of companies, a lot of people are not blessed or just don't identify or don't do anything to kind of get these minds together. I think you need to be able, as a leader and as a boss or as someone that's kind of building something new, you have to be able to give opportunity to people. You have to not be afraid to kind of open up. My problem was I opened up too much and I had to reel back a little bit.
I was just going to say, for those listening, we're talking about how XYZ ABC people had done not good things, and now 20 minutes later you're saying, well, you need to open up again. It's like a life lesson where 100%. Even though you get hurt, it's not this new person's fault. So got kind of take it with a grain of salt a little bit and keep the train moving.
100%. I mean, that's the thing though, like, me, I don't take shit personally. Like when I do, it'll be like a very quick minute. It's not going to harp on my day-to-day. I have a very beautiful poker on and off face, and I've controlled it over the years. When I come in, I'm locked in.
Is that right?
When I get off,
That's what you think.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I guess not then. But I'd like to think so.
I'm just kidding.
But no, I could be going through a world of hell, and I'd still, if I had to come in and just make sure that my team doesn't realize what's going on, I just got to have the poker face on and get the job done. I do it. But the reality is, I move on, and the last 6-7 months have been so crazy. We're at a point now where we've calmed a lot of it out. We've sorted a lot of problems. We spent maybe 100 hours on creating training systems and courses and policies for our sales team, maybe our project management team, our coordination team.
Maybe more.
And we recorded probably 100 hours of videos alone on just training videos.
Oh, yeah.
So that's correct. But we're at a point where we spent so much time cleaning this up. Now, before we could even hit the resume button, shit just automatically resumed. And then we have a lot of other things that are kind of in the pipeline that we're working on that could potentially change the future.
It's about the systems. I think, like, I've always thought that those were very important.
Yeah.
I have these experiences, especially for someone listening. Check the systems and the workflows, the softwares, the people that you have in place that really are really essentially what would be the heartbeat of your company. For me, that's what it comes down to. And as you start to grow, you need to improve all of these things, the workflows, the systems. You just got to keep a pulse on it, like you said. So it won't be self-sufficient.
It won't be. I mean, you have to also, if you see somebody in like your peer or an individual that you're working with, or someone that you know in your life that can provide some insight and some value, don't be afraid to tap into them. Mm-hmm. You know, the amount of people that I've talked to during this crisis moment really helped kind of get to this point. You know, we had a guest, Nabil, on, and Nabil gave me a lot of good advice. You know, he gave me a lot of good feedback, and he's built a really, really successful brand.
Right, he has. Shout out Altanu.
Shout out Altanu, yep. And then Nabil was one of few people that I've talked to. I say Nabil because like we just got him on recently.
Yeah.
But talk to your peers, talk to your mentors, talk to people that are in your circle. Don't be afraid to. It's never an ego thing.
Can't be.
If you have an opportunity, reach out. Be like, hey, I could really pick your brain. Pick your brain. It would really help. We're going through some shit. What would you advise me to do? You know, if you're too afraid, thinking that, oh man, they're gonna think that I fucked up my successful brand, you're way out of your league, and you're never gonna make it more.
Just
successful.
A personal growth thing is what it comes down to, and you can't let the ego kind of get in the way. And
never.
At the end of the day, do you want to feel good, or do you want to fix the problems and progress?
You got to do whatever it takes.
Yeah.
That's the only mindset you can operate on. Mm-hmm. You know?
I think we just kind of touched on how did we fix it, right? Detox it. Really solve the issue. Do you think that we solved it?
No, not 100%. No way. I think we still have work to do.
Gotta get out. We're rounding third, maybe.
Yeah. I think on a scale, if you have to look at 0 to 100%, we've maybe, with the problems that we were dealing with, we were at 80. We're at 80% now.
Easily.
With the bigger problems that we're trying to predict from happening, I'd say we're at 60, maybe 50%, because there are other things that didn't cause this year's problems that we don't want to happen.
Well, at this point, we're in the place that we're at, mm-hmm. or if you're in this place that you're at, don't leave any stone unturned. Flip them all. You might as well.
Well, the biggest lesson I personally learned, and my biggest takeaway from this whole process, was that I'm not waiting anymore. I'm not waiting for shit to happen. I'm not waiting for problems to show up. We're trying to take as many preventative measures as possible. Have more frequent check-ins. Have more frequent pulse checks. Mm-hmm. You can't just build a successful brand, and because you know what? One day you might wake up and everything's chaos. And let's say you don't have people like Jack. You don't have people like people in the leadership team. We don't have
people on the ground with you.
On the ground with you. And it's just you solo working on it. And then you just scrambling. You don't ever want to be in that position, because that can kind of severely damage your brand. So we're just not waiting anymore. That's me personally. Mm-hmm. I'm not waiting for the next thing to come. And we talked about this in almost every leadership meeting that we have, which is, let's take action before it happens. If we see any sort of temperature movement on this particular issue, let's do this to solve it right away. Yeah. Or let's think what we can do. We talk 100%. About this so much now, right?
Yeah, and not only talking about it, but putting it on the radar, and then also being able to, like you said, have checks and balances, so that what are the indicators? Okay, this is indicator 1, indicator 2, indicator 3. Let's touch back up on this, next meeting, next week or the week after. And then if we see those things, not ignoring them and then moving on them quickly.
Oh, yeah.
So
that's all I got, man.
any I guess quick summary, let's say 2 sentences about what we just spoken about. Obviously the main topic today was how to detox the issues that are plaguing and hurting your company, how to fix them. Now that we're, like you mentioned, 80%, 90% on the other side now, what do you think?
I think that in the process of you getting people to solve your problems, don't spread yourself too thin to the point where you stop getting into the mix of things to solve those problems yourself.
Stop getting the hands dirty.
You got to get your hands dirty. And I think that you got to stick to your roots no matter how crazy and how big you get. You got to really humanize yourself and just like humble yourself as much as possible, or keep doing that as however you can, to keep yourself closer to the pulse. Because that's what I realized. It's like, it's not because of laziness. It's not because of, like, for me personally, my output never changed. It was just focused on other things. But a lot of times you kind of have to figure out what's important and what's like priority, you know? So in a nutshell, just you got to get your hands dirty. You can't fully trust any individual 100%. These are, like, for me personally. Yeah, I mean, that's just have more frequent check-ins, just with your team, with your company, with your brand, with your numbers, with everything. What about you?
I would say, I'll say this 1,000 times, but the systems at which the company operates, and for me, what I mean by that is on a day-to-day, how is 90 to 100% of your team operating? What are they doing? Right? Having a good pulse on that, making sure that it's the most efficient it can be, make sure it makes sense. I think the second thing would be similar to what you had said, which is move quickly, move efficiently, stay organized. And if it doesn't work, that's okay. Keep going. Can't stop. You can't stop in the middle. Stop when you're done. Can't stop in the middle. And the reality is, a lot of times I feel like people know what has to be done or what needs to be fixed, but they just either, number one, ignore it. Number two, think it's going to fix itself. Those 2 things will never, ever happen. So you got to just grab it, take it, and go. It is what it is. And you know what? You'll feel so much better after you've been able to do that. And then you can look back and be like, wow, I can't believe I waited this long. Yeah. So I think those would probably be, the few takeaways for me. So
100%, man. Yeah, I just think on an exit note here, for me, it's more of like to address the point that you said, that either you're just mentioning right now, which is people just think that it's gonna go away, and like the boogie monster's just gonna disappear, or
the boogeyman.
The boogeyman. For me, it's all about how bad do you want it? Like, how important is it to you?
Priorities.
If it's fucking important, man, you gotta be obsessed with it. Like, it needs to be everything you do. And for me, the reason why I realized, like, through this crisis period was why the brand that I built, spent so hard building, is important to me personally, and why I took it really serious to do anything and everything that we can to solve it. It's because of how bad I want it. It's because how obsessed I am with this. This wasn't a fluke brand that I created, or a business that I created that ended up being successful. And then I'm like, I worked towards creating this business. Like, I targeted this space.
Right.
It's very personal to me, Yeah. So I'm obsessed with it. I live it. I breathe it. I dream it. And for me, like I told you, like, in terms of revenue, in terms of income, I have a lot of other things that I focus on, right? So I kind of like do a lot of other things, and a lot of other big picture stuff, other different things that can potentially help with this, and other brands that I was acquiring and things like that, right? I put a pause on everything because of how important it is to me, you know? So you just gotta kind of do a check. How important
Yeah,
is
and a lot of it also comes down to the team as well. You know, it's like, hey, I know we've had a couple of conversations where, like, we need to do this, and needs to happen right now. Can't wait. Can't wait. You know, and just got to do it sometimes. So with that being said, I think we've kind of covered a lot. I'm hoping for those listening, got a couple things here that have stuck with you. You know, I'm not sure. Well, I guess, yeah, I hope that you learn a couple things here. I know, ideally, hoping that none of this will ever happen if you're listening, but the reality is it probably will to some degree. And, God, you want to
No,
say
I'm
something?
just saying this was, I mean, I know we didn't really dive into crazy specifics, but this was our focus this year. That's why this is something that we realized that we should talk about, and maybe people can learn from it, you know?
Well, that, and then I guess very briefly, you know, before we actually sign off here, is we did that for the first, you know, half of the year.
We did that about 2 to 3 quarters, but we back right now.
That's what I'm saying.
That's what you're about to
and
say.
now we are back, we're like the trend here. The trend here, I'm getting excited. You know, I got James here telling me to stop screaming.
No, just you know what?
The trend right now is like this.
Not to
like
end on
this,
a damper.
not this,
Absolutely,
that. Straight up. So
100%.
that being said,
like this, you climb like this.
Straight up, we're going straight up. It's not like an incline. It's like that.
Yeah,
but
there's 100% agree with you. We listen, man.
You can make it happen if you want it to happen.
We took a break. We took a little hiatus. We figured out our shit. We solved most of the problems, and now we back. Now we're here to.
Now he's back.
We're not here to. We're not here to take part. We're here to.
No, you say it.
No. We end on this. No sign offs. No follow us on Apple, Spotify.
Okay.
This is where we cut.
Okay.
Ready?
All right. For those listening, still follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, like everywhere.
TikTok.
But
now that we're here, we're not here to take part.
We're here to take over. This is our realm. This is what we do.
We're here to take over.
Yes, sir. So,
cut.
That being said,
cut.
Till next time.
Yeah, venture hustles, life is really what you make it. Building up your brand is whatever you create it. Really ain't no limit. You just gotta love it. Working day and night, it's all about the venture hustle. Hey, venture hustles. Time to take it to the next level. Let's go.